Hello once again, Soul Care family. Of course, you guys already know me. I'm like a familiar face at this point because I've been on other episodes. But here we are with part two of our intern podcast episode here. We are absolutely excited to have this wonderful individual. I'm trying not to say her name so that she can introduce herself and things like that. But I'm so excited to have her part on this episode, to have her part of the Soul Care team. And this is just, an extension of Soul Care in terms of our internship program. But before we get into that, of course, for those that are new, if you have not seen me before, my name is Nigel. I am one of the associate therapists here at Soul Care Christian Counseling and Consultation. Also have the privilege of being the practicum program manager here at Soul Care. So I have the privilege of journeying with our interns, supporting them as they become, I guess, baby therapists or like adult therapists. I don't know how to interns to therapists, something along those lines. Anywho, I get the opportunity to journey with them. I get the opportunity to watch them grow, to support them and who they desire and want to be as therapists. So it is an amazing privilege of mine. And this podcast, again, is just an opportunity for you all to meet our interns in this setting. So you're going to get to know them on a personal aspect. You're going to get to know them on a personal aspect, professional aspect. You're going to get to know who they are, on the other side of the chair, so to say. But it is a wonderful experience. And without further ado, please introduce yourself, tell us who you are, and we will dive right into this episode.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for that great introduction, Nigel. My name is Christiana Takyi. I am an intern therapist at Soul Care. I'm a registered social service worker. I graduated from the University of Gulf Humber and I'm currently pursuing my master's of social work at the University of Toronto. So I did grow up in Brampton, Ontario. I lived there my whole life. I find that the city is very multicultural, so it's exposed me to many different cultures and worldviews from a young age. And my
Hmm.
background is actually Ghanaian and Jamaican. So I think my upbringing has definitely shaped who I am today. I'd say like from a young age, I had certain core values instilled in me, like hard work, being genuine, honest, having a relationship with God, treating others with respect. A little bit of an introduction for myself.
Yeah, that's great. So you grew up in Brampton. So my wife's from Brampton. So it's like, okay, I guess there's some cool people that come from Brampton. I guess, y'all are doing something over there. That's pretty cool. So your parents, so you have a background culturally Jamaican Ghanaian. Who's who in terms of your parents?
So my dad's Kenyan and then my mom is Jamaican. And it's been an interesting experience. I find
Can
when I tell
imagine.
people
Yeah.
I'm Ghanaian and Jamaican, they're surprised that they're like, okay, like which side comes out more?
You would,
I think I'm more closely tied to my Jamaican side, but honestly, I'm both halves, so they come out
yeah.
every now and then.
That's so cool. Have you had the opportunity to be back to go to visit any other countries?
Yeah, I definitely have had the privilege of going back to Jamaica, going back to Ghana as well. It was a really great experience just to see like where my parents grew up. I actually visited like their
Hmm.
family homes. It was like amazing opportunity.
So you're grown. So I'm gonna ask you this question, and you can't get in trouble. There's no trouble. Which island do you prefer? Which country is like, yeah, this is me. Which country you identify with?
I think I prefer Jamaica, to be honest.
Of course you do. Of course you're gonna say that. But I love that. I love that you have that cultural experience, being able to just, grow up in an experience, having that experience and grow up in those culture, and just how it shaped you. I think that's just a unique, really cool, unique experience. That's really dope. So let's dive into this a bit more. Let's dive into this. What is a personal experience or influence that has led you toward the field of mental health? Like, why are we in this field?
I think just like many people, I was led towards a field of mental health through um just like a significant personal experience where it's like I realize, okay, this is something I actually want to do. I want to help people. And when I was in middle school and throughout high school as well, I had a lot of challenges with poor mental health. Felt like I was depressed and I had just this big cloud over my head. It's hard to actually make friendships, concentrate in school. It was just a very difficult time for me. And I was really privileged and grateful to receive support from professionals in my school, such as like the guidance counselor and actual registered psychotherapist. It was just very
Mhm.
helpful to me to get out of that, I guess, that slump that I was in and that kind of depression. So when I'm working with clients as I move into my practice, it will help me kind of
Yeah.
relate to them and their personal experiences and those challenges they may have experienced.
I love that. So we had our own, kind of personal experience with mental health and addressing some of our own personal lived experiences and concerns that's kind of motivated us to be like, someone helped me. I want to now almost you have to like paying it forward a little bit.
Yeah,
I
just
want
kinda
to be
giving
able
it
to,
back.
yeah, yeah. So I think that's really, really dope. And I think like I don't know, it just seems like that is a little trend that like those that are in this field, they've kind of gone on their own personal journey and they've kind of had their own personal experience, which is what led them to, wanting to be in this field, wanting to pay it back forward and things along those lines. I think that's just really dope. And I mean like for you to say, and if I heard you correctly, it was like you had a psychotherapist or a guidance counselor and things along those lines, so support systems in school, if I heard you correctly. I'm just like,
Yeah.
that's so abnormal, so to say. Like I didn't have that growing up, like in high school and things like that. Like, that didn't exist. Like we had guidance counselors, but there weren't like readily available therapists or psychotherapists, that was available to us. So I think, that just speaks to how far the mental health field has come in terms of getting those services available and access for students, and also just how much further it has to go. So I think that's just, really, really cool. Tell us
Yeah, and
something about you. Oh, go ahead. Yeah, yeah.
no,
Sorry.
I definitely agree with what you're saying, like, even just I feel like having that personal experience, it just shows, like, the value of
Hmm.
help and having good help as well, because you could receive help from somebody, but it's not doesn't really actually help you. It doesn't really support you in the way that you need, but I've had the
Hmm.
privilege of receiving help that kind of propelled me to who I am today. So that's
Yeah,
just something I wanna give back.
gotcha. So is it also safe to say, or correct me if I'm wrong, did you get that help right away, or was it a bit of like trial and error getting, someone that fit with you correctly and things along those lines?
It was definitely trial and error, I think for most people can attest to that. I I wish I was lucky to receive, help and it's just like, "Okay, this person is the right fit for me, and that's it," but
Yeah.
I did have to kinda go through some therapists and, just kinda see what fit for me, and actually, um, what kickstarted my therapy was a teacher that kinda noticed, like, I was sad, I was crying in class a lot, and they decided to talk to me privately, and then I moved on to the guidance counselor, then I moved on to social worker, and then moved on to a psychotherapist, so there was a bit of a process there, but, I'm very thankful for that teacher for recognizing, a student that was in need and then taking action, so, yeah.
I'm glad that you had that support, and thank God for like that teacher that noticed and was, reactive to what they saw and didn't ignore it, and got you the support that you needed. I think that's just really, really great. Kudos to that teacher. Shifting gears just a little bit, outside of therapy, what brings you joy? Who are you outside of therapy? What are your likes? What are your hobbies?
I have a couple of hobbies, actually. I love to garden. It's getting
Okay,
colder
yeah.
now, so the gardening season's kind of wrapping up, but I love to
Hmm.
garden. I love reading, love listening to music. I also love to play the piano. I like to crochet, but those are 2 hobbies that I don't get to do too often.
Why is that?
I'm in school, so I don't have too much time to do
Hmm.
everything that I enjoy. Um, and I'm a bit rusty on the piano as well, so going back to it just kinda reminds me, like, I need to practice, and I get overwhelmed, and then I just don't engage in that
That's
hobby.
fair.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair. How old were you started learning the piano?
Piano, I think it was, like, at the start of middle school, so maybe around 13. I actually only did, like, 1 level of piano, so my understanding of the instrument is pretty basic, but I like to kind of play by ear and figure out songs that way.
Okay, that's really cool. Yeah, I've always wanted to learn how to play the piano, just never got around
Never
to it.
happened.
Yeah, yeah. Hopefully one day, hopefully one day. But let's transition this a little bit and talking more about therapy. What inspired you to pursue counseling, and what inspired you to become a therapist? Tell us a bit about that.
I would say, just reflecting back on the previous question, it's definitely just that personal experience of receiving therapy and
Hmm.
seeing how beneficial it was to me, especially like
Yeah.
psychotherapy and talk therapy. I think it was yeah, I think I wouldn't say it was life changing, but it really definitely like sowed those seeds in my life that I'm starting to kind of reap today. And I'm just
Hmm.
realizing how much it's changed the way my mindset is when I approach certain situations. And it's yeah, just been a big help to me in my life.
Yeah. One of the things and we were talking earlier, you mentioned like, culturally, background to Jamaican and Ghanaian, and how that was you use the word like an interesting experience kind of growing up. How did that influence, you becoming a therapist, or in your own mental health journey? How did that kind of intersect for you?
Definitely throughout my experience with receiving therapy, I have had a Black therapist, but out of a lot of the professionals I saw, they didn't look like me, and with that comes a limited understanding of, like, who I am and my culture and how that plays into even the act of going to therapy, and
Mhm.
when I was when I started out therapy, my parents weren't very receptive to it, and that created a little bit of, how do I say it? It was a bit of friction for us because their idea of therapy was me going to talk to a stranger about my personal problems as opposed to talking to them. So it was hard for them to wrap their head around that. And there was a bit of stigma going to therapy. And I think if I had a therapist that understood the way I received therapy, it'd be easier for them to relate to me.
Yeah. So you mentioned that aspect of like, it was hard for your parents to kind of understand or accept why we would go and talk to a complete stranger as they identified, as opposed to talking to them. And I think like, that is a reality that, you're talking to someone that you don't know, and you're sharing with them a lot of your personal experience and just where you are at, and just how that also or brings in that family aspect. So I can only imagine maybe, parents feeling a bit exposed, or whatever the case may be, but just like how common that is within our community, that like, I don't remember, and I'll paraphrase it because I don't remember it's word for word, but it's almost the aspect of like, whatever happens in this house stays in this house kind of thing, or you don't bring your
Yeah.
business on the road, and things like that. So like, I can only imagine the pressure you must have felt in like taking that step to say, yeah, I'm gonna go talk to someone about how I'm gonna talk to a professional in terms of how I'm feeling. Wow.
I definitely felt torn in that moment because I did feel that pressure of, what happens in the house stays in the house, but I knew I had to seek help from
Mm.
a professional, from someone who actually had experience in dealing with, certain disorders like depression, even just trauma, like actually addressing those instead of just talking about it. So it was a hard decision, but I knew I had to take that step towards therapy.
Mm. That is amazing. Yeah, it's really, really cool. So as you're journeying and you decide, I want to become a therapist, I want to come, pay it forward, get back to the community. Was there ever like a pivotal moment where, that was affirmed for you? Like this field, this calling, this purpose, this desire was affirmed for you. So you're like, yeah, you're on the right path kind of thing?
I don't know if there's ever like a pivotal moment. I can't really put my
Mhm,
finger on it, but throughout my life, as I've told people I want to be a social worker, I want to, start pursuing therapy, help people that
mhm,
way. I've had reassurance from people. They give me feedback like I have a warm presence. I should,
mhm,
stay on the path that I'm following. I've just been told like I have that kind of helping personality. So I've just been
mhm,
encouraged many times throughout my life, and that I'd say those are my pivotal moments, knowing that this is my calling, I'm being affirmed
mhm.
in this way. Um, yeah, just having that encouragement has been really helpful for me just to stay on my path. Because it's not an easy path, but just have to take it day by day.
Yeah, yeah. And I love that, that as you were moving in your field and in your educational pursuit and in the purpose, there were people on the way that affirmed you. So it may not have been one specific person that affirmed you, but it was the aspect that as I continue to say yes, as I continue to show up, as I continue to pursue that affirmation, that affirming, that calming voice, reassuring voice found me and met me along the way. So I think for those that are listening, it just proves or is a testament that like you don't need, the yes in order to do what you need to do. You don't need right away, at least that affirming presence to, start that business, go back to school, whatever it is that you want to do. It's okay to start it and allow, for that affirmation, that, you know, person or community or whatever to find you and champion you, to the finish line in your journey. So I think that that's really just amazing to hear. Off
And even
topic,
like
slight question.
yeah, I didn't
Go
mean
ahead,
to
go ahead.
cut you off, but I think even what you're sharing is again just very encouraging to me because when I like years ago, I just heard a lot about people having this calling and, hearing like, okay,
Mm,
this is what they need to go into. And I feel like I didn't really have that. But like you said, and like I mentioned, like as I progressed in my path and I
hmm.
did get affirmed in that way. So I think it can kind of go both ways. You might be called into a certain profession, but you also might kind of start on your own and then be affirmed in that calling.
Yeah, absolutely. And even to piggyback on that, I remember one of my former pastors once said to me, like, if we take a pause and reflect, or, take a pause and reflect over our life, there will be moments that indicate we are supposed to be where we are right now. From childhood, teenagehood, there will be little moments, little experiences, little events that kind of always gave us an indication that where we are right now is where we are supposed to be. So I think that just again just piggybacks and says like, as you keep moving, as you keep growing in the direction that you're going and growing in that direction, that yeah, the necessary things will find you. Absolutely. How did your parents handle you, wanting to become a therapist, a social worker? What was it like for them to say or to hear that you're going in this field?
They're definitely were very accepting, I would say. Yeah, I think they realize that it aligns my personality. I think from my
Hmm.
mom's side, it was a bit of disappointment because, a lot of her family are in nursing, so I didn't continue the family tradition, but it's alright. It's nursing adjacent, I'd say. It's still a helping profession in that way, but, yeah, I think they understood that I was pursuing social work and therapy and counseling, because it aligned with who I was, and because I liked doing it, they supported it. They didn't wanna push me into something I didn't wanna do, and then I end up burning
Mm,
out and not liking the job.
right. Yeah, that's really great. So it sounds like, your parents had this duality a bit in terms of like the cultural aspect of supporting you with your mental health journey, and then now supporting you as you're going into that field as a professional, and just what their own experience has been with you and supporting and things like that. So I think
Yeah,
it's the aspect of
definitely.
like, all things are kind of working together for the good there.
Yeah.
So let's talk about therapy, but let's talk about therapy and soul care. Why soul care? What excites you about therapy in this faith-based, culturally grounded space that we pride ourselves and are committed to creating for our clientele? Why soul care? Why did you choose soul care?
Well, the fact that it's a Christian
Hmm.
counseling agency is very attractive to me because I think it's so important to find a therapist that has similar values to you, and especially in terms of the religion they practice. Like that's so important because it's it's very hard. Like I mentioned earlier, trial and error finding the right therapist, but knowing you're coming into an agency where there are therapists who are also Christian, I feel like that
Hmm.
baseline is already puts you in the right place in a way. So soul care was just like for me it was a no-brainer because it made sense to surround myself with like-minded therapists.
No brainer, faith based, like minded therapist. That's really cool. Have you ever experienced something like that before? Like having a therapist or knowing of therapists who are like in the Christian faith?
I know. No, so it's a new experience for me even though I'm not necessarily on the receiving end, but I'm still in the supportive space.
Yeah, yeah, wow. So what was that thing? We'll use that word thing that kind of like caught you off guard and be like, this is what it's like to be a Christian therapist. What was that thing, if there is one thing?
I think I think coming into it, like, I don't really know what my expectations were, but I was a bit
Hmm.
worried it'd be very rigid in
Mm,
terms of, like, the Christian practices. Not to say that, things are being done,
mhm,
like, willy-nilly, but I felt very at ease in this space. I
mm,
felt like I could kind of just come as I was. I didn't have to
mhm,
be at a certain place in my faith journey. I could just come in and continue my progress, like, in my walk with
mhm,
God. Like, I didn't have to be in a certain place, and I think that really
mhm.
helped to make me feel at ease and not overwhelmed by this new opportunity through the internship.
Yeah, I love that. I love hearing that for you, that you had that experience and that it wasn't something you felt trapped or you felt restricted, that you could still be your authentic self, still have that opportunity to grow as a Christian, still have the opportunity to grow as a therapist and be in a space where all of that can exist at the same time. But I think one of the things for us in the Black community that we have to do a lot of masking when we step outside the comfort of our homes. We have to do a lot of masking, a lot of, there's another code switching, like there's a
Switching,
lot
yeah.
of things. Yeah, there's a lot of things that we have to do just to get through the day, go through that 9 to 5, 5 days a week. And it can be exhausting. It can be exhausting. It can be overwhelming. So for you to have this experience and for, Soul Care to be able to create this for you where I don't have to code switch. I don't have to put on a mask, that I can show up as a Black therapist, a Black woman who is a therapist and not have to worry about certain things, that I can, show up to therapy with my head tie and my bonnet on or whatever the case may be. Like that clients can also show up in their bonnets and do all the things so that there is no restriction. They can show up as their authentic self and that be celebrated and that be welcomed and there be no cutting of the eye or second looking or whatever the case may be. Like you can just show up as you are. So I think like that's just amazing that you feel that way as an intern coming on, that yeah, there's certain things I don't have to worry about because I'm in this space. Yeah.
Yeah, and
That's
I'm
amazing. I'm
hoping,
glad
like,
to hear it.
even from the client's perspective, just having a therapist who is comfortable in their space that will translate to the clients, like you mentioned, coming to the therapy session in a bonnet, like, just doesn't have to be physically looking relaxed, but
Hmm.
just mentally, like spiritually at ease.
Right. Yeah. And absolutely. And I think, that's also, and that's probably my own like personal belief, but like as a therapist, I believe like we are responsible to empower clients to be their authentic self. And I think that's a part of the work, that they want to be their authentic self in every space that they're in. So if that is, a part of the work, then it should start with us. It should start in the therapeutic space, that when they come to therapy with us, that I know for the next 50 minutes, I don't have to worry about my head top. I don't need to worry about having makeup on or my lineup being jacked up or whatever the case may be, that I can come and sit in this chair and just be seen and just be heard and not have to worry about what you're thinking about me because of my appearance or anything like that. And so I think like, that's just a part of our responsibility and privilege that we get to offer clients, especially, being, Black therapists and offering that to the community. I think that's just an amazing, amazing privilege that we get to have.
Really
So
is.
yeah, tell me a bit more when it comes to therapy and your style. Like, what could individuals expect? What is the demographic of people you enjoy working with? What are some of the issues or concerns that you love, supporting individuals with?
So I've had the privilege of working with, I'd say, a range of ages from youth to older adults.
Hmm.
Right now, I feel the most comfortable working with adults, kind of
Okay.
mid-range, and I have a special interest, I'd say, working with women. I'm very interested in especially supporting women who might be experiencing some sort of domestic abuse, along those lines. I'm someone who's also had experiences of traumatic experiences along those lines as well, so
Hmm.
I'm very passionate about supporting people who have experienced, something similar to what I have experienced.
Thank you for sharing that and your transparency. And it's great to hear you speak about that from being on the other side, being a survivor, being able to now, again, that have to be like paying it forward, but wanting to be able to now hold space for individuals who have had similar experiences as you. Being able to provide them language and context a little bit to what they possibly have gone through or experiencing. So thank you for being willing to hold space for the survivors. Yeah, it's really great.
That's not a problem, and I think being on the receiving end, like, you know what works and what doesn't, even certain
Mm,
phrases people might use that could actually seem like it might help, but it actually ends up harming, so I it's not to say that every client is the same, but
mhm,
being on the receiving end, I just know that I know how I wanted to be, spoken to and cared for, and I just wanna
mhm.
give that back to my clients who might be experiencing something similar.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Let's shift gears just a little bit and let's talk about your style and approach to therapy. How would you describe your approach to therapy? What would that look like?
So I wanna make sure that my clients feel cared for. I want them to know that they're accepted just the way they are, and I like to have a client-centered approach to therapy. So, checking in with clients, making sure throughout the session it's going how they expected it to go. If we're maybe going in a direction they didn't expect, making sure we get back on track. They want to add
Mhm,
certain things to the agenda that they want to talk about. We'll make sure that, those topics get discussed, but really
mhm.
making sure that they structure the session in a way their input is valuable to me, and I wanna make sure they're just at the center of the session.
I love that. I love that. How do you integrate faith and culture and mental health into your work? What would that look like for you in supporting clients?
I would say for me, faith is very important, so I want to lean on my own beliefs and also making sure what's important to the client also gets incorporated in the session. So, for
Mhm,
example, I think that prayer is a very powerful tool. It's a very helpful tool for releasing emotions and anxieties. And if the
mhm,
client also values prayer, then I would love to incorporate that into the session, even in certain interventions that we might come up with, certain goals that we might set for the therapy. And even with
Sure.
culture, yeah, just certain values might be kind of weaved into the session a little bit, making sure not to impose anything on the client. But I think denying, you know, my culture is just denying part of my identity. So I think finding kind of like a happy medium between the two.
Yeah. And again, like I think that's just a unique space of like while we hold a space of mental health and faith and culture, it's navigating how all of this works together. How does this work together for the client? How does that show up for the client? You know, do they feel or believe or think that, you know, their mental health is important as their faith? Or how does their culture tie into their overall experience? I think, you know, again, just being in that space where you're willing to just navigate that with them, just giving and being in that space where they themselves have that opportunity or permission to even navigate that for themselves. I think is such an amazing thing. Yeah, so amazing. Let's have some fun. Let's have some fun. I got some rapid fire questions for you. You have like all of 2 seconds to answer them. They're not going to be crazy or anything like that, but it's definitely going to give us opportunity to know a little bit more about you. You ready?
I'll do my best.
Yeah, do your best. All right. Here's number one: coffee or tea?
T.
Ooh, tea. Okay. Tea. What's your favorite tea?
Are we able to explain our answers okay? So I actually
Yeah,
don't
that's
like
fine.
either. I don't like either, but I can drink tea and tolerate it. But I guess my favorite kind of tea is green tea. Yeah,
Okay. Outside of coffee and tea, then what is your go-to drink then?
water.
Oh, fair. Hey, listen, you can't go wrong with that. That is as healthy as it goes. So
Yeah,
that's fair. That's fair. Introverted, extroverted.
introvert.
Okay, introvert. Yeah, I can see that. I can see that. All right. What is one book, song, or movie that speaks to your journey?
Do I have more than 2 seconds to answer this?
You gotta answer it. One book, one song, one movie.
I guess I would say The Help. I can't remember the
Okay.
author, but it's
Okay. Yeah.
the book The Help. I say that book just because, there's just like a recurring quote that the main
Hmm.
character kind of pours into the little girl she's taking care of, and I think the quote is,
Hmm.
"You is kind, you is smart, you is beautiful,"
Yeah.
and I think that speaks to my journey because I do still to this day have issues with, like, low self-esteem and confidence, and I think
Hmm.
having those kinds of affirmations just poured into you, people just encouraging you along the way is very helpful, as we've already discussed
Hmm.
earlier. So I would say, yeah, that speaks to my journey.
All right. I love that. I love that. One last one. If you weren't a therapist, what would you be doing?
I always wanted to be a baker.
Hmm.
Yeah,
All right.
I love baking. I guess I forgot to mention that in my
Yeah,
hobby.
well, you yeah, definitely did. Yeah. What's your favorite thing to bake?
Right now, I love making cookies.
So for people that are watching, and if you know me or you don't, I am the cookie monster. I love all things cookies. So therefore, I'm putting in my order
No,
for
I have
cookies. I don't know. Yeah, you absolutely have to. I don't know how I'm gonna get it, but I'm expecting like a big batch of cookies. Like I can't wait. I can't wait. I can't wait. That's great. Thank you so much for that. As we're wrapping up, you know, what is one hope or prayer you carry for yourself in this journey and for the clients you'll work with this year? What is one thing that you're just hoping and praying for in regards to this experience?
I think one thing I'm hoping and praying for is to just have an impact on my clients. Doesn't have to be big,
Mm-hmm.
even if it's tiny. I hope
Mm-hmm.
to kind of spark some change in them, even
Mm-hmm.
beyond our sessions together. If they start to move towards change, move towards those goals that they set, I'm hoping that I kind of I'm able to inspire them to begin to change their life or shift directions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I love that. I love that. Well, everyone, thank you so much for tuning in with us. You have now had the privilege of meeting Christiana. She is absolutely positively accepting clients at this present time. So please feel free to follow us on Soul Care. Follow us at Soul Care on Instagram. And please go to our website and book a consultation with her. She is an amazing individual, amazing gem to our team, and we cannot wait to see her growth as she grows as a therapist. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope this conversation helped. Peace. Love you.
Thank you. Bye.